This is coming from a source that does this professionally at the top of the missing persons group at LMPD. And this is him, not me. He thinks that the likelihood is that she's either out of town or that she's deceased.
That was Mike Knabel, father of missing person Andrea Knabel, and no, you are not watching a repeat. There have been so many new details that have come out. I was fortunate enough to have Tracy Leonard, the PI that's kind of leading the investigation for Andrea, reach out to me just a few days after I posted the first video that I did on her case. He kind of pulled me into their research, told me a lot of things that weren't publicly available yet. He has recently done a video where he's released a bunch of new details, and I think that it's going to help kind of reshape what people should be looking for out there. So I think it's really important that we do an update to this case and share all those details with you guys. The first thing is there is kind of a newer version of the poster put out. Thankfully, I think I've showed both these photos in the previous video, but just wanted to be very clear. This is what she looks like now, because there's a lot of different, there's video, there's pictures of her from a while ago, and these are more current photos. This is the person that we should be looking for. And just to recap the original details, we're talking about a white female, 37 years old, stands at 5 foot 7 inches tall, weighs around 180 pounds. Andrea Knabel is missing from the Audubon Park neighborhood in Louisville, Kentucky. She disappeared on August 13th, 2019. She has brown hair, hazel eyes, last seen wearing a tank top. It was described as a light-colored tank top, shorts, and tennis shoes. And of course, there's contact information in the description box below. On top of that, I'm going to have the original link to the first video I did down there as well. So you can get fully caught up with everything if you're jumping into this and you're not sure exactly what I'm talking about. I'm not going to go into maps as much because I did all that on the first video already. This is really an update video, but there's so much new detail. And I think that it drives us to look at this case in a whole different way. And I think that's really important for this case in particular, because quite honestly, the detail we had before was so vague that it just left open every possibility. The detail we're getting today is really driving, at least in my mind, to a few specific things. Starting with an article at WDRB.com, police release new flyer of missing Louisville mom days after reported sighting in Clarksville. And this has been kind of a chain of sightings. There's been numerous sightings that have been called in, but let's get the details on this one. This is an article that was originally published on October 2nd, 2019. Police continue to investigate after someone in southern Indiana reported seeing Andrea Knabel. Someone claimed to have seen her in the area of Eastern Boulevard in Clarksville. We got a couple comments from her father. "We've got to treat them all, every single one of them, like we're going to see my daughter tonight," said Michael Knabel. This is a really hard aspect about having a missing loved one, but he's absolutely right. You have to still take every tip that comes in like this as serious and go and try to figure out if you can back it up. Can you find cameras in the area that might have captured a picture? Can you talk to other people that might have been in the area that might have seen her and get additional information? But I imagine this can be exhausting, especially because we have sightings that seem to be happening across state lines. And I don't know how Michael's doing it. I hope he's not running himself ragged, but you also understand that he has to chase every lead like this down. I'm thankful that people like Tracy Leonard, Tracy's partners that are working with him, are all there to help field these instances. Because if this was just Michael on his own, I'm sure he'd be pulling out his hair by now in terms of these sightings that are reported, and then you go and you can't really, either you can't back them up or you're not sure if they're legit or not, and then where do you go from there? But to his point here in the article, we're not going to quit looking, Michael Knabel said. We just hope we find her soon. And that's another reason why I wanted to kind of jump on this video and get this information out. Time is of the essence pretty much in every missing persons case. But in this one in particular, I think the possibility that she might have left her living situation is strong. I think there's a good chance of that there. So I really wanted to help get these details out, help all of you know where should we be looking, what other conditions are there here. So the last article talked about a possible sighting in southern Indiana. We also have this report from the Courier-Journal. This was posted October 16th, 2019. Andrea Knabel possibly seen in Jeffersonville. It's saying that there are 2 reported sightings of her near a soup kitchen in Jeffersonville, Indiana. It was just eyewitness info, but we are canvassing the area for video, said the private investigator, Tracy Leonard. He urged everyone interested in the case to keep eyes open for her. And we're trying to help him do that with this video today. WDRB.com has another report posted October 18th, 2019. Family of missing Louisville woman raises reward to $5,000. Very happy to hear about this. A reward of $1,000. I don't know how effective those are. I really haven't seen a lot of cases kind of get closed out with a reward of that nature. Here we have the family stepping up. They're increasing the amount to $5,000. I believe that can certainly move the needle in terms of tips coming in. Back to the article. She disappeared after a family argument while walking to her sister's house near the Camp Taylor neighborhood. So that's detail that wasn't quite completely public when I did the first video. When I spoke to Tracy, he was very clear about that. There's some other people that we're going to get to. I've got a whole page of notes we're going to go into about what Tracy talked about on Facebook over this past weekend. But we basically got other people that we didn't know were part of the equation in the equation here now. We know that she was walking from her sister Erin's home, and that she was walking back to what is known as her mother's home, but that's also where Andrea lives. We now know that there's other people that are living there as well. So let's continue with this article and get some more of these details. Mike Knabel said he spends 5 nights a week driving around town and looking for his daughter. Tracy also mentioned that in the Facebook video. And for any Facebook users out there, I'll have a link in the description box below so you can go and check that video out. It's over 50 minutes long, so a bit of an undertaking, but there's a lot of solid information. I'm going to try to relay everything I can to you guys here, but there might be another additional detail or two that you can get from watching his video as well. Erin Knabel says she tries to stay busy by posting flyers and spreading awareness about the case. After the recent rain, flyers are starting to come down, so if anyone can help volunteer their time to put those back up, that would help a lot, she said. Flyers can be found on the Finding Andrea Facebook page. Once again, link to that in the description box below. And if you live in the area and if you can help them put some more of these flyers back up, please check out Finding Andrea on Facebook. Get a copy of those flyers and just get out there and do it. There's nothing else to say about it. We need people to help on this effort, and her sister can't be the only one that's running around town trying to make sure all these flyers stay up. There's nothing she could do to make me stop loving her or stop caring, Erin Knabel said of her missing sister. I'll always keep looking until she's back. So Courier-Journal then posts another article, this one October 19th, 2019, and it has some of the conversation that Tracy had on Facebook kind of worked into it. But quite honestly, there's a couple places where I don't know if they heard him right or if I'm recalling conversation I had with him. So I'm not going to lean into the details too much on this article, but we're going to use a little bit of it just to kind of kickstart the conversation. Though investigators had previously said Knabel was walking about 1 a.m. August 13th in the 4000 block of Fincastle Road near Louisville's Audubon Park and Camp Taylor neighborhoods when she vanished, private investigator Tracy Leonard provided an updated timeline Saturday night in a Facebook Live video. Knabel was living at her mother's home at the time, along with her sister Sarah. So in the original coverage on this case, there was no mention of Sarah at all. Quite honestly, the coverage wasn't even clear in terms of was that Andrea's home that she was walking back to. I think we did figure out that it was her mother's, but I don't think it was really clear that Andrea was living there as well. She is, but we didn't know that other people were there. So we have her sister Sarah and her sister's boyfriend, Ethan Bates, that are actually at the mom's home on this specific night. Additional detail here, Knabel's 2 children, boys who are 6 and 8 years old, had each been staying with their fathers that night. Knabel is separated from the 2 fathers of her 2 boys. Mike Knabel said his ex-wife, Andrea's mother, was not at her home at the time as it was under renovation. So her mom isn't there. We know her sister is there. Her sister's boyfriend, Ethan, is there. And this article also mentions that at least earlier in the night, there is a nephew of hers that is part of this group as well. And this is obviously someone that is under 18. So I think it's really important that everyone tries to protect the nephew's identity. So I'm not going to give much more detail than that, but I don't know if the nephew was spending the night there that night when all this was going on. All I know is that earlier in the evening, the nephew was specifically with Andrea and Ethan, which is Sarah's boyfriend. So that's kind of it for the news updates on this. But we have the video from Tracy, and we've got a ton of detail to go through about this video. So let me bring up my notes and let's do it. And before I get started, I want to give a very big thank you to Lori, who's been kind of keeping me up to date on this case, sending me emails regularly. And I had several brain scratchers that reached out and let me know about Tracy's new posting and about different aspects of what he was posting. So here's my notes on what Tracy had to share with everyone, and I'll try to kind of fill in based on my conversation with him a little bit as well. So we have Ethan, of course. Some places are saying that that's Andrea's brother-in-law, but from what I can see, there is no legal marriage between Ethan and Sarah. Ethan, the reason why he was staying at the mom's home is because there's some remodeling work that he is doing for the mother. And I think one of the articles also alludes to the fact that that's why the mother isn't there, because there's this remodeling work that's going on in her home. So the first thing Tracy gets into in his video is going through a new version of the timeline with a lot more detail. He rolls the clock back to August 12th. And anytime you hear us talk about Chickadee, that's the mom's home. He's saying Andrea leaves Chickadee with Ethan and the nephew. And at 9:01 p.m. is when they decide to leave. At 9:07, they arrive at McDonald's at 3100 Poplar Level Road. And about 9:40, they leave McDonald's and then go to Kentucky One Medical at 3920 Dutchman's Lane. So just to give you guys a little visual on that, the home is in the 3000 block on Chickadee Road. They then go to this local McDonald's, and from there, they head probably about another 6.5 miles or so to the medical center. Now, when I spoke to Tracy about this trip to the medical center, he initially told me there was some type of injury to her face. And I know we had heard that story before about her being worried about having some type of infection that was going on with her face. So I don't believe that this injury is necessarily the result of a disagreement that she was having with Sarah in particular earlier this night. I believe that this is having to do with that infection, that she's getting worried about having some type of infection on her face, and she goes to the medical center. She leaves the medical center at 11:22 p.m., and she takes a lift from there. Now, the video kind of gets interesting here because Tracy talks about the fact that the Lyft driver won't talk to the private investigators. And he even calls him out by his first name. I don't know if he says Alberco or Iberco, but he just tells him, hey, look, I've got my phone number. Here it is. Please give us a call. We just want to talk to you. He then also says that Iberco or Alberco hasn't been interviewed by police either. And it's kind of interesting because the guy also lives a few miles from where he was essentially dropping her off when he's bringing her home. So I know last time we talked about the fact that there was a Lyft driver that was cleared. Apparently, it turns out that Lyft driver actually didn't give her a ride anywhere. I mean, he was just completely unrelated to the case, and that's why he was cleared. So now we have a new Lyft driver that is someone that they want to talk to, but for some reason, they're not able to interview him. So, like I said, she was being treated for injuries to her face. The Lyft driver drops her off back at the house on Chickadee at 11:34. So she leaves the house on Chickadee at 12:15. So we're now talking about August 13th, 15 minutes after midnight. And she walks 1 mile to her sister's home, Erin. And then she stays there until 1:38, and then she leaves there. And this is kind of where the original timeline ended. Now, according to this new information, it seems that she actually... I believe she returns to Erin's close to 2 a.m. And Erin kind of tells her, hey, it's time for you to go home. And then she walks from Erin's back to the Chickadee home. So what's strange about this is when she gets back to the Chickadee home, from what I recall, apparently she has been locked out of the house and they're not letting her in. So it's weird because we don't have a whole lot of details on what's going on with the dynamics of the family. All we know is she had an argument with Sarah earlier in the night. Seems later in the night that Ethan is kind of, takes her to McDonald's with the nephew, takes her to the hospital, then drops her off, and then she gets back on her own. I don't know what the dynamic is, why she's locked out of the home. I do recall Tracy telling me, I'm like, well, what's she supposed to do? Like, basically one sister saying, it's time for you to go home. She goes home, and the other sister or the sister's boyfriend, someone is locking her out and keeping her out of the house. Tracy told me that she actually did have another car, not the one that was totaled. She had bought another car, but something was wrong with it and it wasn't running. And he believes there's a possibility that she might have gone to sleep in the car or something along those lines. So, but what we do get in terms of her phone, because primarily that's where this timeline is being pulled together, her phone was active from 3:53 a.m. until 6:31 a.m. at the Chickadee address. Now, what's really interesting about that is police went and conducted a search, and they could not find the phone at the Chickadee address. So now, from what we heard last time, and this is a big reason why I wanted to put this video out, last time we heard, she was walking around 1:30 a.m. on this particular street over by her sister Erin's house, and then she just disappeared, and that's it. We don't know. Now we're getting some different information. She actually made it back home. She made it back to Chickadee. For some reason, she was kept out of the home. She might have decided to sleep in her car. I think we can kind of couple that up with some of the messages that we heard about in the last video I did, where she was reaching out to people saying, hey, come get me, come pick me up. It could be that she was looking for somewhere to stay, something along those lines. But her phone effectively stays at the home from 3:53 until 6:31. I believe at 6:31, it actually shuts off. But I don't understand why the phone isn't found there. So if we're talking about a situation where this is an abduction or someone did something to her, I have trouble thinking that it happened closer to the 3:53 time range, because they would have left her phone behind and then possibly gone back hours later to retrieve her phone. It doesn't make sense. It sounds super, super risky. But for some reason, her phone disappears. Now, that doesn't mean, I know a lot of you are probably thinking, hey, what's going on with this? We've got the boyfriend and her sister that are staying at the home. Could they be involved in this in some way? The private investigator, Tracy, has spoken to Ethan. He said that he's been provided some info from Ethan, and he did find out that Ethan was interviewed by Louisville Metro Police Department. He was interviewed for approximately 4 hours. Tracy is saying that effectively Ethan has been cleared, but some of the comments I'm hearing are actually saying that Ethan is saying that he's been cleared. And cleared of what? Why would you be cleared if you're just being interviewed about a missing person case? I have no idea. So that terminology is a little strange to me. But there's another possibility that I'm seeing here, which is, what if she did go to sleep in her car? What if she did finally make contact with some friend or someone that was supposed to pick her up, and they came and picked her up in the morning at 6:30 or so? And then something could have happened to her, or maybe she decided that she was going to shut off her phone because she didn't want to be traced from there on. Maybe she was hurt by the fact that, seemingly her sister locked her out of her home. The other sister didn't want her staying there. I don't know enough about what's really going on with the family dynamics, but just seeing the physical movement that's going on of her bouncing kind of back and forth between these two homes, and then hearing that piece that she was locked out of the home where she's effectively living, really leads me to believe that there is a good chance that she is on the move, maybe just feeling hurt by her family and not wanting to interact with them, and decided that she was going to shut off her phone and walk off. And of course, we do know that there are several factors going into this in terms of her losing her job, her car getting totaled. Tracy also looked into her finances, and apparently things weren't looking really great. She had some accounts that were closed. The accounts that were still open had like literally almost no money in them, like less than $10 was exactly what he said. So a lot of pressure, a lot of different things that are going on in her life. And that's why I'm really holding out hope that there's a chance that maybe she is bouncing from soup kitchen to soup kitchen. Maybe she is moving around to different states and just kind of trying to stay away from her family. So some other things that he pointed out, he says that there's over 100 persons of interest that they've been working on in terms of interviewing, tracking these people down, talking to them. He's saying that those tips that are called in of different sightings of her, none of them have led to any type of positive identification that it was actually her, but they're still checking all of those leads. He did also say that Andrea's children's fathers have been interviewed, and as a matter of fact, one of them was interviewed by Tracy directly. He also stated, I know I kind of touched on it in one of the articles already, but that Andrea's father is out there every night looking for her. He's driving around. Thankfully, they have one of their investigators that's typically with him when he's driving around looking. Tracy says that he's working this case assuming that she is alive. He's still working this case pro bono, and he's funding the entire investigation himself. He is not going to quit. He says there's still no activity on her financial records. And he also wanted to put out a personal message to her that if she was watching his video, she's not in any trouble. People love her, and they will essentially help her through whatever she's going through. And he made some direct offers that he's got her back. Whatever she needs, he's basically there for her. He even said that if she wants to call him on a block number, please call him on a block number. He did also point out another potential risk factor here, and that is that Andrea is involved with many different types of people, and he did say some of the people that she's involved with have extensive criminal histories. So, of course, that's a little bit of a concerning factor. He also stated that if someone is holding her against her will, that she will be located. They are going to find her, and that person can take that to the bank. On top of that, as we noted in the articles, the reward has been raised to $5,000. And here's what he wants you to do if you actually see her. Get a picture of her. Contact police and keep her in sight until they arrive so you can direct them to the person that you believe is Andrea. Also, give Tracy a call, and his number is 502-618-9337. So, a lot of new detail. When I spoke to him, he was expressing some frustration about social media about how everyone is there was a lot of trolls attacking this case, I think because of the Missing in America involvement. There's now a different Facebook page that Tracy has put up himself. I'll have a link to that down below. It's called Tips for Andrea Knabel, Andrea Knabel Investigation and Tips by Tracy Leonard. But I'll have a link so you can find it real easy down below. But when we were talking about that aspect, I was telling him, I'm like, well, unfortunately, the information that you've released now is so vague that it's leaving everyone to any type of theory about what could have happened here. And now we've got a bit of different information. And quite honestly, I'm interested in knowing more about what happened with Sarah that night. How bad of a fight was this? Is this just a kind of typical sister fight? Was it more than that? Did it get physical in any way? What Ethan's involvement with that fight is? Why didn't Sarah go with them when they went to McDonald's? It kind of seemed like, the family's going out for dinner, but Sarah doesn't come along. I don't know. I have several different questions about that, but I am really, really kind of bothered by the fact that her phone makes it back to her home, sits there until 6:30 in the morning, and then seemingly disappears, just shuts off and disappears. And I think that leaves us in a situation where, yeah, we could be looking at something that's foul play related, but we could also be looking at something where she decided to leave this situation. I feel like I'm split right down the middle at this point. So I'm really happy that Tracy and his team finally decided to release this more complete timeline. I think it's going to help move the conversation that social media is having, all the theorizing that social media is having, to a more focused conversation that might be more helpful in terms of eliciting the right types of tips for this case. But I was also sure to tell him to send my condolences to both Mike and Aaron. And I even reached out to Aaron myself just to let her know that we had spoken, and if there was anything I could do for the family, to please feel free to reach out to me. So that's kind of where I'm at with it now. I'm kind of happy that the focus is moving away from this kind of catchy headline about person that looks for missing people, now a missing person of her own. Although admittedly, CNN just posted something like that today. But there's a lot more to the reality of what's going on with this case. We still don't know quite all of it. I'm not sure why Sarah might not step up and start providing some information to help with this. I would think that she might have a different perspective that could shed some real light on this and possibly help the public figure out a different way of helping them find out where Andrea is. So I'm kind of curious about that. But we'll see what happens with this investigation. One of the things that I told Aaron when I reached out to her was I felt really good about Tracy. I felt really good about the work that he was doing. And once again, I'm just happy that he's decided to share this information publicly so that we could focus the help of web sleuths all over the world in terms of trying to move this case forward. So if there are any other developments, anything else that I can share with you guys, we will be staying on top of this case. This is one where I want to see, all of them hit me in that way, but I really want to see Andrea come home. I want to see someone that helps in this same area that I'm so passionate about return to that type of work. We need more people helping these missing persons cases. I don't want to retread too much of what I said on the last episode, but I'm just very moved by this because of the type of person that I've heard she is. Quite honestly, when it comes to her work with helping missing people, I've heard nothing but good stuff. And I'm just hopeful Tracy gets that break that he's looking for, or Louisville Metro Police Department gets that break that they're looking for, and we can see some movement in this case. Thank you so much for spending some time with me here. I really appreciate having you guys out there, people that care about these cases like I do. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you back here on Friday with a brand new episode of Brainscratch on the Lord and Arts channel.